Sup nerds, I'm Joshua Talby, and today we're going to be trying an experiment with voiceover. The project I am working on here, I have some things coming up that I needed some skulls for, and they needed to be made out of Warbler, which is not an which is not an easy thing to do. So I have this decorative skull, and I thought, what if I could just form Warbler to it? So to accomplish that, I put two pieces of Warbler together. I adhered them together for thickness and for sturdiness. And then I just heated it up and started pushing it onto the skull. Actually, it worked out phenomenally well. I was able to pick up a lot of really nice detail. There you can see I made the mistake of pushing the Warbler behind the cheekbones, which made it impossible to take the Warbler off of the skull because of those end cuts. Ended up being okay because I shave off some of the forehead pieces on later. So as you can probably tell, there was a lot of Warbler left over that I didn't need. Initially, I was going to try to use a Dremel, but I could not find the attachment that I needed, and then I tried a sanding bit that didn't work. So my solution was to just heat up those extra pieces of Warbler and then fold them onto the inside of the skull. And actually was really cool because that ended up making the edges really sturdy. And when you do pieces like this, usually the edges are your weakest point. So now that I have it done, it's actually really strong, and I'm not really all that worried about it warping too much. Here I'm using just a regular clay sculpting tool to push the Warbler into those teeth to get out those details. Now, because there are two sheets of Warbler, there's a lot of extra material that I usually don't have to work with, and it was able it enabled me to be able to get really nice detail and to do some really cool stuff. Later on, I make like cracks in the skull, and I'm going to be probably doing some detail work on the skull using the same method, just using a regular clay sculpting tool and pressing it into the Warbler. Here I'm trying a thing that I've talked about, but I've never actually done, or that I've shown a lot of, and that's taking your extra pieces of Warbler, heating them up into a ball, and then you can use it sort of like a putty. Now I can tell you that the black Warbler works really well for this method because it seems a little bit softer than the brown Warbler. I ended up wanting a spike coming out of the forehead. You can see in the lower left hand that I've already cut out a hole in the forehead of the spike, or of the skull, sorry. And initially I was going to do this method where I made like a pattern and I was just going to heat up the Warbler and fold it to make the spike, but it really wasn't working. There was a really nasty seam and it kept on falling in on itself, and I couldn't get the sides as straight as I wanted. So eventually what I did was just do what I did for those like vampire teeth things, was I just got all my scraps and made a big ball of black Warbler and shaped a spike out of it. It actually worked out extremely well. I was really happy with it. In order to attach it so that it would be stationary, I had to put a piece of Warbler behind or in the inside of the skull where that hole is, and then I pressed the spike into it, and because Warbler is self-adhesive, it stuck. Here you can see I am applying that back plate, and I am about to stick that spike on. Now, in order to make sure that it's really good on there, I'm using a tool just to press the base of the spike into that back piece so that they become one. Mostly that was just so that the spike didn't get hit and would fall off. I don't think it's going to be an issue. It seems like it's on there pretty good. Here I'm using a sculpting tool just to press into the Warbler, just to give that back piece some texture so that when I paint later, it'll be visually interesting. If I had just let it flat, it would have stuck out pretty bad. So I didn't like that top edge. So what I'm doing is, what I'm going to do here is I'm using that tool to press through the Warbler. in sort of a random haphazard sort of fashion, and then I'm pulling those pieces away. And the idea is to give it sort of like the whole skull was broken, and that was the face of this skull was the only piece that's left. And that jagged edge really looks like broken bone. I can't wait to get to the painting stage because I think that's going to look really, really cool. Now, since the details were coming out so nicely, I decided to give an attempt at putting in the joints using just the same methods that I've been using. And actually, was really neat. I was able to get some really cool detail. There was some things I had to learn and some things I could figure out. I think I could do it better. The tool I'm using now may not be the best for it. Unfortunately, I don't have one that I think would be best. I might have to end up either trying to buy one or just make it myself. But we are coming up to the end of the video. If you like this voiceover stuff, let me know in the comments. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. And share this with your friends. Bye, nerds.